It is December 27th, and we are here in sunny Vieira, Florida, uh,
December 27, 2009.
2009. Um, and could you please tell us your name and how old you are?
Victor A. Ferencko, age 79, 78, soon to be 79.
Soon to be 79.
Yes.
Um, and Dad, I was wondering, uh, when you think back on your childhood being anywhere up to age, call it college, up to age 22, what some of your favorite memories are when you look back on it all.
Well, I look at my childhood as probably everything was favorable. Uh, in Lubica, in the town that I was born and lived until I was 7 years old, I have no unpleasant memories, just pleasant memories. Then,
Like of what?
like of what? Of
Hmm.
playing in the streets, going to the stream. I know with other friends playing in the water, going into the mountains when they were doing the haying. And I remember uh, getting honey from wild bees. This was up in outside of Lubitz, up in the mountains, uh, and which my grandfather owned some land up there, which is now or was taken over by the Czechoslovak government. I don't know what happened to it now, but it was taken over for military purposes, for training, military training. In any event, and I used to go up there also. I remember vaguely something about skiing, going up there with skiing, and then catching frogs in the stream. So
Do you remember what the house looked like where you lived?
yeah, I remember that very much because
Describe the house.
it's the typical, uh, I think it's German house. It was sort of a beige, pinkish color. They were attached houses that were attached to neighbor to the neighbor's house. Our house was on the corner, so it was only attached on one side, and there was a yard in the back. We had, I remember, rabbits. Now that I think of it, and I remember multiplying. Rabbits used to multiply like rabbits.
How many rooms were in the house?
Just one unit. We did have
One room?
no, no,
Oh,
no,
how many rooms in the
no.
house?
How many rooms? Frankly, I just remember one room, which also had which had the stove, which in those days you heated in the winter. Probably only one room. That's where you had the kitchen and and the living room and your bedroom, because it uh, it was the only room that was really heated. Uh, we did have 3 or 4 doors down another house, which my father bought before he went back to the U.S. But that one, I think we were renting out, and then I remember it was not occupied. I don't know if they were contemplating to live there, but my father-in-law living there, or what. But in any event, when I came back in 1962, the house was falling apart. The reason being is that it was unoccupied, and you couldn't really rent it out because I guess because the communists didn't look favorably on landlords, private landlords. But in any event, yeah, that house was it just deteriorated, and as a matter of fact, the whole corner of Lubica that our house was on, and also the other house was taken over by the municipality, and they put up a supermarket. So, and I forget what year it was, but it was I think in the 1970s when that happened.
Now, when you were 7, you came to the United States, and presumably you took a boat.
Yes.
Do you remember anything about that boat trip?
Yeah.
What do you
Well, I
remember?
remember first of all going through, getting on the train with my mother to go to the boat in France, and as we got on the train, the German
As you got
soldier,
on the train, where?
someplace we were going through Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and German soldiers got on the train, all happy-go-lucky young soldiers, and when we told them that we were from Czechoslovakia, when my mother told them we were from Czechoslovakia, they said they'll be there soon.
They did.
Yeah,
And
which they were, because this was in April of '38, I believe, and I think they marched in '38 or '39, the latter part.
and what about the boat trip?
And then I went to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed in Paris for one night, and I remember I saw the first black person in my life. And then we took the train to Le Havre. Oh, I'm sorry, to Cherbourg, France, where we took the SS Aquitania, which was had 4 stacks, 4 chimneys. It's an old ship. I don't think it's around anymore. Anyway, I remember on the trip on the water, and all I remember is being on top of the deck and seeing the ocean going up and down. I don't remember getting seasick.
Do you remember your sleeping quarters?
I think it wasn't individual rooms.
It wasn't.
No, I think we were on cots,
Uh-huh.
laying in
A big
general
room with many.
Right,
Uh-huh.
right. Anyway, that's what I remember. I remember coming into New York Harbor, seeing the Statue of Liberty.
Do you remember your thoughts?
I remember that somebody pointed out there's the Statue of Liberty. Soha Slobody.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, meeting my father for the first time
Mm-hmm.
on the piers of New York City, and he asked me what school do I want to go to, public or private or parochial school, and I told him public school. And that's where I landed up in the first grade on East 75th Street, and I had a translator who was I guess a kid who was of Slovak background, but he spoke English, and he was a translator for me. I was there only a couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, the only word I remember is Every, and that's because Every is pronounced the way it's written in Slovak. And the other words I couldn't understand because they didn't pronounce it as they wrote it. Anyway, then that's that. Then I went to St. Elizabeth's School, which was a Hungarian parochial school on East 82nd Street. I do remember one incident, and that is when the Hungarians invaded Slovakia, and they took over Košice, and I remember the Hungarian general on his horse, triumphantly uh, moving through Košice. Of course, I, being a Slovak there, felt rather that, you know, outside of it. But anyway, then we moved from that was we lived on 78th Street and we went to school on 82nd. Then we moved to 71st Street about a year later, and I went to St. John's Slavyan Nepomutsky on 66th Street. So, and then of course I remember going to school there for the next 5 or 6 years, and meeting with my friends and friends, which I even have till today. Some of them are already not, but you know, I still have friendships and a lot of memories growing up on the east side of Manhattan and participating in all the social community functions. It was like a village, really, uh, and there were all kind of nationalities, but a lot of Czechoslovaks, Irish, of course, and then you had Greeks. I remember that, a lot of Greeks and
All living
Italians.
in this
They were all living,
area?
together, right,
Hmm.
in the area. It was, it was sort of a European, Central and Eastern European, or Central and Southern Europe atmosphere. But it was all pleasant,
Hmm.
and of course I spent my summers in upstate New York because my uncle had a farm there, 240 acres with, and there were, I forget, about 20 or 30 cows. Used to milk cows by hand. I did 4 or 5 cows were my cows that I had to milk, and so I remember that. Which today, of course, with machines, there's hardly anybody probably growing up now is milking cows.
Do you remember what time you milked the cows?
Yeah, it's always in the evening because you milk the cows in the morning and in the evening. But in the morning, you do it about 5 or 6 in the morning, and my uncle did not wake me up to go get the cows in the morning because they were up in the pasture up on the mountain. But in the late afternoon, about 4 o'clock, I used to go up the mountain and bring in the night pasture or the day pasture. I forget. Yeah, the day pasture. Uh, used to bring the cows down, all 20, 25 of them, and then we milked them, have them milked, and then send them back up into the pasture before the after the milking.
What was done with the milk?
Well, the milk was put in a house, which had piped in cold water, and when the milk was put in the cans, you put the cans in the water to keep it cold, refrigerated.
Hmm.
Well, it wasn't really refrigerated, but it was cold, and they picked up the milk every morning. Every morning, about 8 or 10 o'clock,
Hmm.
the creamery would send a truck and pick up the milk. Anyway, that remember that. I remember when giving milk to the cats
Uh-huh.
and the kittens, and I didn't. Not only we give them on a dish, but we used to squeeze the udder, and you would spray, and the cats would have their mouth open, and you spray right into their mouth. Anyway, that's yeah, I remember that. Okay, and doing the haying with, of course, we had horses, uh, and I remember Dickie and Fanny, the pair of horses. They become part of the family. Uh, but tragically, when Dickie was too old, and I guess my uncle felt, he needed a stronger horse to be partner to Dickie, to Fanny, who was still much younger than Dickie. But anyway, he bought Prince, was a huge horse, and took Dickie away, and Fanny went berserk when
Oh.
she ran up the mountain, jumped the fences, and it was really sad because she was looking for him.
Uh huh.
And but anyway, she finally got over it somehow, and then Prince was her partner,
Hmm.
and that's of course that I remember. But this was on a farm in Shavertown, New York, and the city of New York took it over for a reservoir, Pepacton Reservoir. And so when he was bought out by the city of New York, he bought another farm about 20 miles away. And over there, he didn't have any horses. He had tractors only. So he had the cows. He had, I forget, 30 or 40 cows out there, bigger farm. And he
Was
had,
that after World War II?
this was back in 47, 48, something like that. Uh, and there, the milking was done by machines. It wasn't. I think he bought machines, so it wasn't the same chore. But you still had to do it in the morning and in the evening, and you had more cows. Plus and also it took haying. It took all summer to bring in 100 loads of hay back in Shavertown, and when we came to Walton, to the new area, everything was done by machine, so you could do what it took all summer. You can do in 2 weeks, and with the machines, so it was much more mechanized, and it was and I wasn't working on that farm. I think my brother went there. My brother Johnny, went there for one summer. I remember that, and so that's the when I was young, going to college. I went to the Fordham Prep High School in the Bronx, New York. Took the Third Avenue L. The trip was, I don't know, about 40, 50 minutes on the Third Avenue L up to from 67th Street Station and Third Avenue up to Fordham Road, which is approximately 190th Street. And Third Avenue L is no longer there. I don't know how they get there now. I think they do it by subway, a different route. But anyway, I not only did that during the high school for Fordham Prep, but I also went to Fordham College and I did the same thing for 4 years.
Was
And
that taught by priests or teachers?
well, they were
Lay teachers.
the priests. They were that taught just certain subjects. I remember they taught religion and Latin maybe, but most of it was done by lay people. What I remember is the math and the sciences that they had were done mostly by lay people.
Did you like Fordham Prep?
Yeah, I liked Fordham Prep. I made. I had, it was very pleasant. Uh, I was surrounded by mostly by Irish kids. I always had a battle with them, but we finally learned to live together. Uh, but that was, that was, of course. Then when I went to Fordham College, I joined the ROTC, which I found to be very pleasant. Uh, doing military science, I felt it was much more practical than I was doing before. You know, just learning the basics, English and mathematics or whatever, which had, you know, which I didn't apply. This was, applied it practically, so I liked it very much.
How did you apply it practically?
Well, when you were figuring out flight plans
Oh,
and
okay.
various things like that, which we did. But anyway, when I got out of former college, I was in the ROTC, went to the Air Force for 2 years. I graduated in June. I was supposed to go in July, but there was budget problems in the U.S. government, and they couldn't. They had to defer me to January because they didn't have enough money in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I couldn't get a job because everybody knew that I was being drafted, you know, going into the service. At that time, there was a draft, and everybody knew that you were either a draftee or unless you were a 4F, you know. But in any event, I got a job at Bloomingdale's for the Christmas, selling shades. And that was
Hopefully, it wasn't on commission.
no, it wasn't a commission, but I got to say, I was there one of the good salesmen. Everybody liked me. I thought I didn't think I could sell shades, but I was. I did fine. I did sell them.
Okay.
Anyway, that was that.
Thank you.